We're going to give you an overview of PathPilot 2.10.0 today. It's a new version for us. Has a couple of great features that we hope you'll enjoy. One of the key ones that we've added is a whole different layout. You might realize this is an unusual orientation of the monitor. This is a 19 by 20 by 1080 monitor, and it's in what we call portrait layout. And if you go on the settings tab, mill area, there's a drop down for the portrait. And so you can change the layout between portrait, or the default look up till now has been landscape. There's a couple of distinct advantages with portrait that it gives you. One is that it has an always visible, much larger toolpath display at the top of the window. So no matter which tab you have selected, you can always see the toolpath of the program that you have loaded. The other distinct advantage on the main tab is that the G-code window is slightly wider, and these view options used to be tucked underneath the main G-code display. And so to get to them, you had to kind of tab between the two just because of the screen real estate that we had. But now with this other toolpath up here, we're able to slide it out over here for a lot easier to use, right? On the File tab, we've also optimized it where there used to be a file preview over here that was quite small. And now, since when you select a file, like let me pick this Knights BC, we put the whole preview way at the top. There's no reason to look at the toolpath as you're selecting the file. So we just put it up there, and you get a much wider chooser dialog for both the internal drive and the USB or the hub drive that you have. A couple other things you'll notice: the buttons down in the primary area of the controls are a little wider. And when you reference buttons or axes, we get them out of the way and shrink them down a little bit. So they're still there if you need them, but honestly, once you've referenced, you're probably not going to do it again until you power cycle the machine. So we just give you a little larger display and a little larger numbers in that case. So some great features there with the portrait layout. Another thing we ended up adding is you'll see this block delete button here. So some of you maybe working on other controllers have had that feature. PathPilot now supports it. If you put a / on the front of your G-code lines, it can treat those as optional lines depending on the state of the toggle of that button. Very standard implementation. Should be familiar to anyone with that functionality. Another great feature is the camera features. So we've added the support to be able to add up to 4 USB cameras to the controller. Depends on the type of controller you have. They all support at least one camera. If you have a controller that has a little more processing power or more of a modern one, it could support possibly up to 4. They do require at least 4 gigabytes of memory in the controller, and you can check that just by typing admin memory, and it'll show you right on the status screen. This particular controller has 8 gig in it. But you can, on the settings tab, there's a whole camera sub-tab now. And you'll see that on this machine, we actually have 3 cameras installed, 2 physical ones. So they're USB cameras. We'll show you, we have them mounted inside the enclosure of this 440 here. And then we have a virtual screen camera as well. So this option over here for including the PathPilot screen in the video recordings captures the entire screen while you're cutting something as well. So it gives you a lot of great diagnostic capabilities, as well as being able to highlight different operations and steps of whatever G-code program you're kind of running. We added more than one camera because you might want to place cameras in different spots within the enclosure for different camera angles, different viewpoints. There's 3 ways that we take advantage of the cameras. One of them is the automatic e-stop loop recording feature. It's kind of like a dash cam, if you will. If you have that enabled over here in the camera settings and you're out of reset, by default, this is the camera LED recording indicator light. And so if that's green, the cameras are rolling. But they only record for 30 seconds of time. And so there's a little memory buffer in the controller where we always are capturing it the last 30 seconds. And if you ever punch the e-stop, we save those 30 seconds, and you basically can review the previous 30 seconds leading up to whatever caused you to punch the e-stop button. It's a great feature. I hit the e-stop button, It actually saves that buffer off to the internal drive. It tells me where they are on the controller. And so I can come in here to the eStop videos folder, and there's actually MOV files in here. There's a few log files that we have for diagnostics as well, but you get a separate video file for each camera angle. So there's 3 cameras in here. You can review these files right on the controller as well. If you copy them off using a USB drive and take them to a Windows or a Mac laptop, you can look at them there as well. You're going to get a little higher resolution on those platforms, of course. But if you just highlight the video file and click load, you'll actually see the video file and it'll play. This actually shows one of the cameras right in there. You'll notice the orientation is upside down simply because we've got the cameras mounted to the roof of the enclosure, or the ceiling of it. That might be a common mounting location for you as well. It gets it up out of the table. You can certainly reorient that on your Windows or your Mac laptop. Should be easy to do from a post kind of editing standpoint. So that's one of the features of the camera. The other feature that we have is just straightforward manual recording. So if I come out of reset, let me get this going again. If I bring the machine out of reset, come over to the settings, I can just hit the start or the stop button and it'll just start recording whatever I want, right? And I can manually control when I want those activities to happen. The snapshot button lets you end up taking a picture with all 3 cameras at once. There'll be a little icon over the right where you can kind of arrange whatever you need to do or add a little bit of lighting if you want to, or just check the view of where you have the cameras installed, right? It's kind of a handy way of looking at things. The manual recording is also supplemented with M codes. So you can put in M301, 302, or 303 sprinkled without your G-code program and end up recording, the second operation or something if you want to. So a lot of flexibility on the camera capabilities. The last way we have of using the cameras is we've enhanced the M00 or M01 optional brake feature, where we've had for many versions now, you can put a file name like a JPEG file in a parentheses comments behind the M01. And we'll look around on the controller for that picture and display that at the brake. It's a great way of kind of self-documenting your G-code. If you reach an M01 brake, which requires you to flip a workpiece, you can kind of take a picture of the workpiece when it's all set up the proper way. And it kind of guides the operator for actually cutting the program, right? But you got to come up with a file, right? Well, if you have cameras, you can put in that parenthesis a file name that doesn't exist yet. And so as long as you do that, when PathPilot hits that M01 brake, we end up looking around and seeing that there's not a camera image yet. And so we start all the cameras and let you line things up and take the picture, and we create the file for you. And then from that point on, every time you run that program, the file already exists. It's a great way of kind of jump-starting that feature without having to take a picture with your phone and then get a file over to the controller and things. So a lot of great camera options. There is a new Tormach camera that we've got in our Tormach web store already. It's part number 51240. Take a look at it. It's got a nice metal enclosure. It's easy to mount on any surface of the enclosure, as well as a 15-foot USB cable. So you can string it out anywhere you need to through the enclosure all the way around to the back of the controller itself versus the machine. So take a look. The cameras do support audio recording as well. Our cameras work. We've tested with them. You may be able to use any USB web camera that you have laying around. Give it a try. Plug it in on the camera settings tab. If you see the camera and the video and the audio streams of what it's going to record and be recognized at, probably work. So can't guarantee it, but give it a try. You might be able to leverage some old ones as well. Another feature that we added was a new on-screen keyboard. So for touchscreen users especially, our older previous touchscreen on-screen keyboard was very handy, but it was actually missing some keys that some people found they really used a lot. So the new one has every possible key combination, has some new functionality as far as caps lock and all sorts of symbols, and it's kind of a full keyboard. The other key feature is that it actually works every single spot in the user interface where you might want to edit some text. So for example, on the offsets tab, when you're actually editing a tool description, formerly the touchscreen keyboard didn't come up, but the new one does. So hopefully you get some advantage out of that. Should be really handy for people with touchscreens. Last feature I'll highlight is with M and MX mills, our coolant button is now going to be split. You'll see a flood coolant button and a mist coolant button. M and MX mills have always had that capability on the actual printed circuit board that controls the machine, but we haven't wired that all the way out to the electrical cabinet. We now provide some great instructions for that. If you already have an M, M+, or MX mills, it's very inexpensive and straightforward to just add that cabling, and then you get a power controlled outlet through the UI or through M codes. Newer M and MX mills will start having that outlet already on the electrical cabinet soon. So enjoy that feature as well. So that's just a survey of a couple of great features. Obviously a couple of issues fixed along the way. Urge you to upgrade to 2.10.0 if you haven't. It's as easy as going to the status tab and clicking the update button. If your mill is connected to the internet or already, you can just check online and we'll download it and install it for you. Otherwise, you can go to tormach.com, download a single file, bring it over to the mill by a USB drive, and click update. It takes about 5 minutes to update, and unlike any other controller, if you find a problem that stops your critical workflow, you can back up to the previous version. All you got to do is go into the Browse button and then click Previous Versions, and all the versions that you previously had are still on there. So you can back out just as easily as you can go forward. So it's kind of a risk-free try. Give it a try. Hope you enjoy it.